Okay. What's going on, people? This is going to be a very brief but meaningful edition of Sports Plus Life. So yeah, it's going to go down today. Serious conversation, y'all. So as we're getting ready to cut the music, I'm getting ready to cut the music off. Yesterday when I did a podcast, I mentioned the verdict in regards to Breonna Taylor, and I didn't really go into detail because my mind I was like in the sports zone. So I think I quoted a WNBA player, but I didn't go into detail the way I needed to, the way I usually do. So, you know, there's not going to be any let's get to it, no buzzer, no anything like that. I'm just going to pretty much jump right into it. Well, yesterday, as everybody knows, the verdict came down as far as the case of Breonna Taylor, and it was found that nobody would be charged of the murder of Breonna Taylor, which happened 6 months ago. Instead, one officer was indicted on pretty much endangering the neighbors around the apartment that the crime scene happened. And I'm going to still call it a crime scene because it is what it is. But it's very discouraging, very heartbreaking. People around the country, athletes, celebrities, everyday Joes like you and me have been very shook up and been very heartbroken by that verdict. And it's just a painful reminder of where we stand in the totem pole of justice and equality. And it sucks. It really does. It sucks. And of course, there was a state of emergency declared in Kentucky and Louisville. It was a curfew, a 9:00 curfew that was implemented. A couple of police officers were shot. And, you know, you don't want to see this kind of stuff happen. But let me just break it down like this. Dr. Martin Luther King once said, "Riots are the language of the unheard." And in the year 2020, I'm going to have to say that I disagree with some of that statement. The statement made by Dr. Martin Luther King that riots are the language of the unheard. I have to disagree with some of it. Now, by no means is this in any way disrespect to Dr. Martin Luther King. By no means. But when I say I disagree with it, I disagree with the timetable. I don't disagree with the statement on its foundation, but I disagree with the timetable because I wasn't around in the 1960s. I don't know what happened. What I do know is that statement was made, and it probably had some he probably was dead on the money when he made that statement. What I would say now, in the year of 2020, I would change that statement up just a little bit and say riots are the language of the ignored. Because in 2020, there's no way that you can't hear us. You have heard our fears, our tears. You've heard our anger. And this has been going on for years now. With the advancement in technology and the advent of social media, you have to hear us. You heard our anger. You heard our fears. You heard our tears when they killed Trayvon Martin. You heard our anger, fears, and tears with Eric Gardner, with Tamir Rice, with Philando Castillo, with Michael Brown. The list goes on and on and on, all the way to Ahmaud Arbery, and then Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and even Jacob Blake, who by the grace of God is the only person out of all of those names that I just named is one to survive. So I have to say, you've heard our anger, you've heard our cries out, help, please stop, I can't breathe. You've heard it and you've ignored it. So I have to say that riots are the language of the ignored for black people in the year 2020. I simply have to say that. And I don't advocate for any violence, but when we keep on telling you, we keep on pleading with you, we keep on begging you to just give us a fair shake. And again, something like this happens. Some not just the killing, but then the awful verdict is what ends up happening. And then it's almost, you throw your hands up and you say, what the fuck? You say, what are we supposed to do? And you know what the even more messed up thing about it is that to the day of the Breonna Taylor verdict, 65 years ago, to the day, an all-white jury in Mississippi acquitted the men who murdered Emmett Till. 65 years to the day. How far have we actually come? Think about that. How far have we actually come? That in 1955, an all-white jury in Mississippi found two men that brutally tortured and murdered a 14-year-old kid from Chicago. They found him not guilty. 65 years later to the day, in 2020, a verdict comes down about a woman, a 26-year-old woman who was working on frontline during a deadly pandemic and was murdered while she slept. But yet everybody walks. Like I said, Dr. Martin Luther King said riots are the language of the unheard. No. That narrative has changed. It has changed in 2020. For black people, riots are the language of the ignored, because we have given you no choice but to hear us. Our black celebrities, our white celebrities, the whole world has been screaming Black Lives Matter, but here in America, we are still ignored. And it hurts. And it's not fair. We constantly ask for justice. We constantly get robbed for justice. But then you get mad when we seek revenge. Think about that. We've been asking for justice for decades upon decades upon decades, only to be ignored and robbed. But you get mad when we seek revenge. I even read somewhere where it said that the killing of Breonna Taylor was justified by a government official in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, wait a minute. You just settled with this family. You just gave this family $12 million for her death. Something doesn't add up. If you give a family $12 million for the death of anybody, but then turn around and say the shooting is justified, well, why did you give them $12 million? Wrongful death, but if it was justified, why would you give them anything? Because there was a level of wrong done, and that pretty much was nothing but gone now money. It's not right. It's not right. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm not a racist, but I am a realist. I am a realist, and I'm going to keep it real. To all my Caucasian friends, I love y'all dearly, but that's not going to stop me from saying what I got to say, because of seeing what I'm seeing. It makes me fear for my son. I've said this before. It makes me fear for my son. I have to give my son a talk about the police that unfortunately other races don't have to do, because I'm black. To indict one officer for endangerment to the neighbors was such a slap in the face. Such a slap in the face. It's ridiculous. Black people, this is what we got to do. This is what we got to do. I'm not going to say vote, because obviously this country is run by money. It's run by money. Even during a pandemic, we have got to empower ourselves financially, and we have to stop hating on each other. We have got to empower ourselves financially, and we have just got to work together and stop hating on each other. That's been our biggest kryptonite to ourselves is that when we see one of us come up, all of a sudden, somebody hating from our own community. And we have to stop that. We have to stop that. I love you too, like family, Heather. You already know. I'm wearing the shirt. So it's I am on Facebook Live. But that's what we have to do as a black community. We have to really empower ourselves. I understand that there's always hurdles and there's always loopholes as far as this, because I know this system is designed to keep us down. That's fact. The people, the forefathers, quote unquote, who wrote the Constitution did not write it with any black people in mind. We were not considered people. We were property. So when people say the system doesn't work, actually the system is working the way it was intended to when it was originally written. Trust and believe that. Trust and believe that. It's just how many people are going to join and consistently stay with the black community to say no more. To say no more. Trust and believe. If there was a way you think that the system could let those people that killed Ahmaud Arbery and let that cop who killed George Floyd off, trust me, it would happen. But that was so blatant and so egregious, there was no way you could blind eye it. There was video to that. Unfortunately, there's no video to what happened with Breonna Taylor. Now, the police swore out that they announced themselves as they busted into their apartment. But there was a neighbor who saw the whole thing and didn't say anything. A neighbor who saw the whole thing called 911 after the police busted into that apartment. Now, if the police announced themselves and you have a neighbor that saw the whole thing, why would the neighbor feel compelled to call the police? This doesn't add up. Doesn't add up. So I had to say that. I had to get that off my chest. I've been thinking about it all day since I was at work. You know, I'm going to put this as a podcast, a quick podcast, but I'm also on Facebook Live. I had to get that out of my system. I hope that a lot of people listen to this and just understand how far have we really come. 65 years ago, an all-white jury acquitted the men that murdered and tortured Emmett Till. 65 years later to the day, the police who murdered Breonna Taylor walked scot-free. Got a long way to go. We have a long way to go. So I'll quickly do a review on sports. Miami beat Boston last night. They're up 3-1. The Lakers and the Nuggets play tonight. And Thursday night football comes on in about an hour. The Jaguars and the Dolphins. But yeah, today wasn't about sports. Today wasn't about sports. It was about this injustice that happened in our system, in our society, and that continues to happen. And I just hope and I just pray that everybody is safe. And you guys take care. I'll see you guys soon. Brandon Brevon Towns. I'm out.